Welcome back to the Pathmakers podcast. My name's Edwin, and I'm really excited about the guest we have today. Cesar is an amazing designer. His work speaks for itself. But Cesar, for those of you who don't know you, who is Cesar?
Wow, that's a deep question. Haven't had a chance to think about that one. I'm a designer. Have been doing this for more than 15 years professionally. Um, you know, I recently went out on my own about 2 years ago, and now practice my skills on a solo basis, or some people might call it freelance, other consultant basis. But that's where I am today. Got a family, two little ones, and yeah, making things happen, and everything's thus far. It's pretty great.
Yeah, so just in that section, I have a ton of questions. So hopefully we'll get
Yep.
through all of them. But
Yep.
one, what were you doing before actually? Before going out
So I
on your
was
own?
working. Yeah, I've been a designer for close to, I would say, 20 years. So anywhere between 15 and 20 years. I can't recall. Um, and my last role was I worked in government, and I was a designer there. Um, I got to the point where, over the years of working a W-2 or being an employee at a company, I had this itch, or this, I guess, I don't know, calling. It sounds like super trite, but um, I felt this calling to do this on my own. And, the pandemic happened, and we were all working remotely. Uh, that opened my eyes to a lot of opportunity and possibilities, right? So while we were working remotely, I started taking on small, like, freelance jobs. And I noticed that I was able to manage my time well. And I've always been inspired by, for example, the guys at 37 Signals, right? Basecamp, and read all their books. Never really took the plunge, even though they would constantly inspire people to do that, including myself. And after the pandemic, I decided, it was just a decision. I'm going to do this. Like, I'm going to let go of my fear, because that's definitely a factor. And I could speak for so many people that are just fearful to make that jump, and put all my ducks in the row. So, for example, started reaching out to people to provide services for, landed a handful of clients. And I was upfront, said, "Hey, I have a full time job right now, but I am planning to go out on my own on this date, which was July, right, on this month." Um, that whole process began in January, February of 2022. Landed the clients, and then started doing little work for them. Left my job July, and went from there.
So January 2022, that's kind of when you
Yeah,
started, right? So
yeah,
so 6 months roughly. It's like when you're kind of balancing job plus freelancing plus life. You mentioned you have kids, you have a family, you have you got it all going
yeah,
on. How
yeah.
I can't imagine that is very easy to do. Like that's got to be very
No.
I'm trying to figure where do you sleep? Like do you just not sleep during that time or how do you manage to
So
balance all that out?
yeah, that's a great question. So when I got started, so let's talk about those first 6 months. During those first 6 months, I would literally force myself when I could, because there were times that it was literally impossible. But when I could, be up before everyone else, start doing some work, help around the house, then get ready to go to work. And it was hard as hell, hard. Okay, but I was determined to make this happen, because I didn't want any excuse, even if it was a real physical excuse, like getting sleep, get in the way. I don't want anything to get in the way because I really wanted to do this once and for all. If I wasn't going to do it, then I knew I wasn't going to do it at all. That that was it. I knew I wasn't going to do it because I've gone through it time and time again. Where I would try to convince myself to make the leap to go out on my own. I've got the skills. I've got the knowledge. I think I have the people skills to convince clients to come on board and work with me. But I there were these other things that were kind of in the way that I decided that's enough. I need to do this. So whatever it takes, I need to make the sacrifice. So I did. I made the sacrifice. Two kids. One of them was under one, and I just knew I had to do it because that's another thing. People might think if you have kids, don't even think about taking a big risk like that. And maybe I'm different, maybe I'm weird or the the wrong one, but I don't think that way. I think if you got kids, that gives you more that gives you a reason to do this. That gives you a reason to give them a I don't know, a better life. I was living a great I was cruising, man. I was cruising, cushy job in an office when it's hot out, air conditioned, when it's cold out, nice and warm, nothing to complain about. But there was no purpose. There was no purpose there. And I couldn't see myself staying there for 10, 20 years
Mm.
and walk out. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
I don't work that way. I don't work that way. And I realized that many years ago I don't work that way. And I was trying to find little ways to change it up for myself.
Yeah.
What I needed to do was just do it. And so my kids gave me the reason to go out there, do them, and show them that hey, there are other ways to make a living. And like this whole conventional working a 9 to 5 isn't the end all be all. It's not. It's not. It's a great learning experience. I'll tell you that. Great learning experience, and I have no complaints about having lived that. But there's another way you can carve a path for yourself. So I decided to do that, to carve that path. Hard as hell, like I said. It's difficult. But you have to compromise. You have to make a decision. Am I going to do this or am I going to work on my business? Am I going to do this or am I going to go hang out or veg or whatever? You have to make those hard decisions in order to make it work. And what you realize at the end is you do make it work if you are determined and if you put yourself through those sacrifices. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, it really is. It's not easy, but it's simple in, if you think about it.
I mean that there's a lot of like great information there, right? Sacrifice is like I find it interesting. Like the kids part is a more motivating thing, but I think
Yeah.
this is like the last thing I'll touch on in like the timeline. 6 months you're balancing both. What really was a turning point? Like, hey, I'm gonna quit because there are some people who like they have the idea they quit the next day. Like
Yeah.
where I guess why was it 6 months versus 1 month or 3 months or like
Well, 6 months because I was making sure that I had my savings intact. So I gave myself I just gave myself a time limit. Like I need to have savings for 6 months. Should anything happen? Okay. So I was filling that bucket, so to speak, so I could have something to fall back on should anything go wrong or happen or whatever. Uh, and also like the clients that I had, I mean, just it just worked out. It worked out in those 6 months.
mm,
You know what I mean? Now,
yeah,
had all of that been accomplished much earlier, I probably would have left earlier. You know,
okay.
and then before I left, I made sure I had everything, like all of my operating procedures and everything in place. So whoever came in to fill my role, like they had everything ready to go. I mean, I was ready. I was ready. Those 6 months, I was just militant, ready to go.
Ready to go. I mean, yeah, especially with like that like like all the sacrifices you make. I mean, yeah, you were definitely prepared. With, I do want to go back on the kids aspect, like how, I mean, it probably was scary, and a lot of people, like I still am thinking, like, okay, I personally don't have kids, but for people with kids like yourself, I'm sure there was some sort of risk, like, because it is not just your life, but it's also theirs.
Yeah.
Do the benefits, or like how did you kind of like wrap your mind about, if you go a little bit deeper and thinking, okay, yes, I'm doing this with kids, which equals higher expenses and
Yeah.
other things, versus staying at like a W-2, like how did you kind of like rationalize it, or maybe it wasn't rational?
That's a great question. Um, the way I guess pieced it all together was I have to have a specific number per month to cover all expenses, cover health insurance, which is a huge one, especially for the kids. Cover the cost of all the essentials, being fed, roof over the over our heads, clothes, you name it, etc. And of course, all the bills. Uh, and as long as all of that is covered, I knew we were going to be okay. Everything else is kind of secondary. Well, let me go back. For me, on the first 1 or 2 years, for the first 1 or 2 years, everything else kind of falls in second place over or behind the things that I just mentioned, like the essentials. My whole idea or plan or whatever you want to call it, strategy, is that by year three, I go back into savings mode, investing mode. Uh, you know, we found each other in the small bets community. So in small bets, the premise of that is people are doing a variety of different things, right? Kind of putting a pieces in different little. I keep using this metaphor, but different little buckets, right? Um, that's my goal. But I know that I have to take care of the essentials right now, which is my consulting, freelance services, onto uh, trying other things, which I have. I tried a variety of different things, and we can talk about that. Uh, and then, of course, reinvesting and all that good stuff to make sure that things are taken care of in the future. So that's the idea. I don't know if that answered your question. I'm kind of going. I feel like I'm going all over the place at this point.
I mean, no, that's really good like information, because like seeing like how you count for the kids, like at least I think what it really does is kind of drowns out the noise of hey, like you mentioned, a lot of people think going out on your own with kids is like super difficult, which is not even possible. There are people who just think it's not
Risky.
possible at all, right? But I think you're like a testament to like it is very
Yeah.
much possible with like calculated risk, and obviously like savings, ample savings, and like you weren't going out and just had no clients, because that's also very risky. You had clients, you had savings, you had everything planned out, so it was calculated risk. And like at the point that you left, it seems like, okay, I already have clients, like this is already off the ground, it's like going up from here, like that's the only place it can't go, honestly. So like
Yeah.
it honestly makes sense. um
Yeah.
and I do want to touch on your consulting thing now, like pivot to that in a sec, but it's Barkit, right? That's the one that I saw.
So yeah, I want to talk about Barkit. Barkit was my attempt at providing a specific service, uh, like like two things essentially to clients with a recurring monthly recurring revenue pricing model on the back end, right? So that was that's kind of my um, the thought behind it, and it was one of those productized services that I decided to build and launch in less than a week because I got to the point where consulting, and I'll be 100% transparent with consulting. Things can be, it's a roller coaster. Like 1 month you're expecting to get paid by a handful of clients. It probably doesn't happen. You have to continue basically hounding them down for payment. It happens. And sometimes it's by mistake, other times it's maybe they forgot. I don't, nothing on the client, but it happens, and it begins affecting the consultant. So that could be a problem. And so the idea behind that, my solution for that was, let me build this other product where when someone signs up, and we've all seen it, someone signs up, there's this whole system on the back end. I built the whole system like back end. I used I built it on Webflow, used Outseta for the payment system, payment and tracking. You know, connected some Zapier's apps so I could get notified and start building out kind of their onboarding process. Everything was pretty automated. What I found out through that was, first, people, if they want to subscribe for some kind of service, and I might be wrong, this is just my experience, they want more. They want to have way more services, not just, I was offering branding for, let's say you're starting a company and you want a website. Well, let's begin with branding. What does branding mean? Logo, the look and feel of your company, establish that, then design your website, then build it, then launch it. That was the whole premise, or that is the whole premise. It's still live, but I'll talk about what I've started doing. Uh, what I found out is that these clients were like, well, yeah, I want branding, I want a website, I want ads, I want one, two, three, four, so many different things, right? Uh, and so it takes me back to the subscription pricing model, which I'm sure you've noticed happening all over us, all around us, all over us, uh, where, unlimited design, whatever you need, boom, this is the one-time monthly, let's go, right? I was so skeptical of that when I started hearing about it, right? So with Barkit, my idea with Barkit was like, let me bring the price down significantly, and it'll begin adding up monthly because I'll be providing SEO and making sure your site's maintained and in good health and etc. All that good stuff. Um, my prices were probably a little too low, and clients were like, "Well, I don't just need this; I need these other things. Like, I want a deck to get investors. I want a whole design system. I want." They're just asking for so many different things, and all of that takes a lot of time. It takes energy and making sure that you do a really good job. With Barkit, I was like, I'm going to create a templated system so they could choose a template. I'll just you know flush it out with their brand. Looks like theirs, doesn't look like the next guy's next door. They're good to go. Um, so how I solved that was, okay, I talked to a few of these clients that were interested, but they're like, I don't know. I said, without putting it out on a website or anything, just talking to them, is, well, how about you pay me X amount monthly and we'll try this unlimited situation without even hesitating. Yes. Okay, let's do it. So that made me realize that the unlimited pricing model is actually something that people want. I didn't know that. I assumed people didn't really want that. It was just to benefit the designer or design team or design agency so they could have monthly recurring, which is fine. That's what we all want. But it opened my eyes to, wow, clients actually want this monthly subscription thing. Like, there are no contracts. As long as you're clear and have a way to intake clients, fulfill the requests, and you're clear about what the I guess what the rules are. Like, you fulfill a request, okay, whatever you need next, shoot it over. You clarify things. It's no different than consulting work because you're still talking to the client, you're still clarifying things. You still want to do a really good job, but you've got this monthly recurring system happening. If they choose to unsubscribe next month, cool. That's on them. If they want to unsubscribe, they can unsubscribe. They keep whatever has been done for them, and it goes on from there. So I've started to change that kind of on the back end for myself. And it's as simple as just like setting up a Stripe payment link and okay, yeah, I paid. Cool. Let me get you in my little system here and we'll take it from there. So
That's pretty cool because I didn't see anything, or at least I couldn't find anything about like a productized service. Like I saw like the
yeah.
website stuff, but I didn't even think about like like I didn't know you were doing like subscriptions like that up until now. Honestly, like that's pretty
Yeah.
amazing actually.
Again, it was all because I put out this Barket product in the world and started promoting that and started telling people about that. And then I also did this other secondary thing, which I called it Logo Fast, which was like, I'll make a logo for you super fast. Here are the terms from start to finish. We're not going to go on a full on brand. I'm going to create a logo for you, your company, your brand, whatever you want, or your service. Uh, Same thing. Like people are like, yeah, but I don't just need a logo. I need a website. Oh, I don't just, I need help with my social media, cover image and thumbnails and this and that. So just all of that was really good. And I think it's good to put something out there so you could get feedback because that feedback helps you do the next thing and do it better. And it might be even better monetarily for you if you do the next thing because you got that feedback from the previous thing.
Right. I kind of like how he's the evolution, right? You have like Barkit, but I mean, he's still on, like he's still live, like, but you also have like this design subscription. I don't want to say it's an upsell. It's more of like just like a complete package of like unlimited designs. And I think
Yeah,
I definitely was shocked when I first heard about it. Like unlimited design for like a subscription. Like that sounded kind of, in a sense, like when I first heard about it, I thought it was like almost deceptive because it's like you have X amount of hours in a month. They have a designer. Like it's not really
exactly.
unlimited, but like it kind of
That's,
is in a sense.
yeah, that's exactly what I thought too. But what I've learned is you have to be clear and you have to say, yeah, it's unlimited, but we're working on this request and we're getting through it. As soon as we complete this request and you're happy with it, we'll move to the next request and the next request and so on and so forth. So that's where the unlimited idea comes in. It's not like they're going to throw a bunch of things at you and you're just like fulfilling all these requests. It doesn't work that way. It's impossible, right? Uh, but it's a win-win for both the client and the designer because the client sees the progress. The client is literally getting a customized solution for their thing, which and like generally costs like tens of thousands of dollars in some cases, like a whole brand identity package, easily at least 10 grand plus like 2 or 3 months of work. So everything is condensed. You still get the same quality of work. Everyone is like determined to get it done, right? And they wind up like they literally a client winds up spending much, 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 much less for the same service. Do you know what I'm saying? So it
Yeah.
really is a win-win situation. Like before I even thought, at first glance, I was like, dude, this is a total scam. There's no way anyone's going to buy this. In fact, like I would be on Twitter arguing with people, not really arguing, just tell them like, hey, look, I've done this. I know what I'm talking about. There's no way this works because you've got to sign a contract. You've got to sign NDAs. You've got to fulfill the work calmly so you could do a good job, right? But no, no, no. That's not the way it works. So the way it works is like, for example, let's just say like a website project. You can't expect a really solid, beautifully done, well executed website to be completed in less than a month. It can be, but it depends. Like how complicated is it? You discover what the client needs ahead of time, so you could scope out the project. It's no different with subscriptions. The only difference is, hey, you want to start working together? Cool. I mean, you could unsubscribe, and you still have the rest of the month left if you want anything whatsoever. You know, and it winds up working out, and it works out really nicely. Again, as long as you're clear with client, as long as you're willing to do a excellent job, generally they'll be happy. that's in my experience so far.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that totally makes sense, right? Especially like those clear boundaries on like what a subscription is, and I think really like the subscriptions we have today, like if you subscribe to Netflix, you're not going to get shows on Hulu, right? Kind of the same
Yeah.
thing. It's like a very clear boundary.
Hmm.
I think that's probably key here. And I mean, I
Yeah.
haven't done the subscription service myself, but it seems like, based on your experience, it's kind of like where if anyone wants to do that, that's what they like. It's a
Yeah.
requirement.
Yeah. Actually, I even I hired a coach, like a business coach recently, and he was the same. Like, if you go to his site, like you won't see like any subscription pricing or anything like that. Like, you just book a call with him. Uh, you have a quick chat for like 15 minutes ahead of time if to see if it's a good fit, right? But when he got down to it, like the pricing and how it works, he's like, "Oh, I'm just on a subscription basis. Like, just pay me X amount per month, and we're good, man." It was beautiful. It's great. It's amazing, and it works out well. And he works the same way where if I have a question for him, uh, I'll send it asynchronously, right? So I'll send him a video talking about like kind of thinking my thoughts through, like, hey, I'm kind of coming across this problem. I don't know if you can help me with it. And then he'll shoot me a video by the next day. Hey, try X, Y, and Z. I'll do that. I'll send him another video or text or whatever. Like, hey, can you help me out with this? He'll help me out with the other concern. It's amazing. That's the exact same model, but it's done in a different way.
Business coaching subscription. That is
Yep.
literally the first time I've heard about it. That is pretty amazing, honestly.
Yep. Yep.
Wow. I
And no meetings, no one-on-one meetings like this. It's all like, hey, send something over, I'll get right back to you. You want a clarification? Cool. Send it over, I'll get right back to you. And it's just bouncing back and forth. I get to watch or check out like whatever he replied on my own time, and vice versa. And I still get the same amount of clarity. He still provided tons of resources. Um, yeah, it's such a nice experience because you don't have to block out like a time in your day to talk to someone and flush out ideas. I just flush them out on my own, shoot over a video, boom. He does the same. It's great. And there's my camera. Let
Oh,
me fix
that's
that.
fine. We can still record that. I have like one kind of like last segment. So you mentioned like blocking out your day and such. With all these clients, and how do you manage like how do you manage your day? Like especially with kids, with just obviously trying to be there for them, manage your freelancing. I asked that because I know that there are people who they're freelancing, they're taking so many clients that like that is their life, and
Yeah.
it seems like from you that is part of your life, but it's not the whole thing. So how do you kind of like
Yeah.
manage your freelancing, the number of clients you can take on with life?
Man, I wish I had a cut through like one clear cut answer, but I don't. The thing that I do to help me is I literally get up early. And back to your question about like how do you get sleep, like I have to compromise sometimes. There's other times when uh let's say there's a deadline or two or three that I have to meet, like I'm literally working from like 4 a.m. in blocks of time throughout the day, up at home too with a couple of kids during Christmas break, by the way, which is wild. No, but once in school, so that tends to help a lot. Um, Throughout the day, I'll break my time between me and my wife. You know, she sometimes she teaches, so she'll be out from the morning to about midday. So I have to figure things out. Sometimes I have a babysitter, sometimes I don't. So there's like so many different factors. I don't have like a clear answer, but my whole motto is get stuff done. That's the only idea. Just get, can I say shit? Get shit done.
Get shit done.
Yeah, just get shit done. So if you do it in the morning, you do it in the morning. If you do it in the middle of the day, you do it in the middle of the day. If it's in the evenings, got to do it in the evenings. But one thing I don't do is work on the weekends,
Hmm.
and I'm clear about that. And there's a lot of reasons. Number one, family, right? Number two, I need time to refuel, to rest, to get back in the groove, so I could begin Monday with a clear head. Okay. And sometimes, there's some lucky days where I'm only working like 3 hours, maybe 4 or 5 hours in the day, and that's cool. Like, happy about that. I could take my kids in the middle of the day somewhere, or take them to the park or whatever. So, um, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but I really I don't have a clear answer for that. I just think about getting shit done and making sure that I'm present for my kids, present for the family, fulfill whatever responsibilities I have at home. And it's a balancing act, but that's the way I do it.
I mean, I think there's like some few key like things like right, not working on the weekends, like hard, just block. But then waking up early.
Yeah.
So what time do you wake up early? Like what is early?
Yeah. 4 or 5 in the morning. 4 in the morning
Wow.
when I have a little bit more energy. 5 in the morning when I want to sleep or need to sleep a little bit more. Yeah. And I'll go to
Wow, that
sleep
is
about 10 or 11. So I don't know. Do the math.
wow,
It's like
that
six
is
hours.
yeah, that is pretty early. For
Yeah.
context, like I normally wake up at 7. I'm like, damn, that's super early. That
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. I mean, 4 or 5 in the morning is when I could, if I get up at 4 in the morning, I have a good solid 2, 3 hours to work. So everyone
Right.
will get up about 6 or 7, right?
Hmm.
They go to bed 8, and that gives me and my wife time to just clean around the house and get stuff ready for the next day, and maybe relax a little bit. But yeah, I mean, right now, this point in my life, it's kind of go go go, because I have little ones. But you know, I hear from friends and people out there, when they get older, it just time wise, it gets easier. So I'm not even complaining. Just having little kids when they're babies, they grow up so fast. So it's gonna happen fast, right? So I might as well just put like 150% energy right now. Um, so when they get older, it's not as bad.
Right. And I mean, there's also the thing they're not going to be young forever, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's true. But I think we're reaching just about the end. One last thing, if you could give like one piece of advice to someone who, is at a W-2, but they know they're kind of like in the same position you were. They know they have something else, that some like a different calling that is not a
Hmm.
W-2, and maybe it's some freelancing or maybe it's like something completely different. Like what advice would you give to them? Because you mentioned, getting off that path is difficult.
Hmm. Yeah, it's an amazing question. I would say, well, first you have to know what you want to do. It's not like you're just going to go out there and try things without making a little bit of money, right? I would try things if you don't have a certain skill. Like for instance, like I've accumulated my skills like for years, and so I know that I have a certain set of skills that I could take out in the market, get clients. People will hire me for my skills. But if you don't have something like that, if you're trying to learn something, just learn. If you're going to school and you want to learn other things while you're finishing school, learn other things. Like you've got to kind of put the time in there, right? I Before getting into design, I used to play music, and I actually went to music school. Uh, and while like in my teenage years, some people could say I probably missed out on a lot, which I definitely didn't because I was playing in bands and we would go to parties. That was like my excuse to go to parties. You know, I'm playing at a party, so nothing bad here. You know, but I would spend hours and hours and hours in my room, locked up, playing my guitar, trying to learn how to play it. Right. Um, back then we didn't have apps, and the best thing we had was like tabs. I don't know if you're familiar with tabs, guitar tabs. You just
Oh yeah.
follow like this line of like you put your fingers wherever it says on the tablature page for songs. Like I would try to learn songs I liked, um, but hours would go by, right? So find that one thing that you could lose yourself in. You could spend a lot of hours just trying to figure out. If it's like coding, if it's design, music, making videos, doing a podcast, whatever you could do to just that you'll get lost and enjoy, right? I would try to get good at that, right? Because it through music was how I found design. I played in a band. I was doing the music thing. We were literally touring places. I wanted to make the tour posters. I wanted to make the band shirts. I wanted to make all the merchandise. I thought I was pretty good at drawing. I was okay, but that was my excuse to learn, Photoshop and then Illustrator and all these different tools, back then. Now it's like Figma and still a little bit of the Photoshop and Illustrator, but just learn, get yourself lost in that, and then also start. Like there, it's never too late to start, but it's always late not to start. I don't know if that's a quote, but I'm just making that up right now. um, my point is just start, and when you start, you learn and you get better and better, and it takes off from there. Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot. So, Caesar, where can people find you if they want to get in touch with you? Where's the best place to do so? I know you have like LinkedIn, you have like Twitter, X. Like, how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, the best place you could find me is probably X. So I'm CES new at X. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Most updates, and if I have any updates to give, it would be on X, Twitter. I still call it Twitter too. So
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
what are people doing? People were tweeting before. Now they're
I mean posting, I guess, but
posting.
whatever. I mean,
Who knows what they're doing?
it's a tweet.
Tweet, still tweet maybe.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for your time, Caesar. This was the Pathmakers podcast with Cesar Contreras. So glad to have you here. And yeah, I think this is about time. Thank you so much for listening, and see you in the next one.
Thanks for having me.